Hello, this is RICKY, the Android guy. Hey guys, today we're doing a side-by-side camera comparison between the iPhone 5C and the Galaxy S3. Now, if you have seen my full review, I went over who won and why. But this is more of an in-depth on what makes them both different, and we'll go through all the photos in this one. So, first of all, what makes these cameras so different? The interface itself is very different from one another. The iPhone 5C has the new look to iPhone's camera, which is, of course, swiping over to do video, swiping over to do photo. You have your square for more of an Instagram perfect measure, and you have, of course, panorama shot. Also, when you take photos, and only photos, you have the effects built in. These are live effects, so you can see them live as they go. You also have HDR mode, of course, and then the front face camera and auto. That is your camera effects. Over here on the Galaxy S3, we do have the older look. Unfortunately, this has not been an updated UI to the new standard that Samsung has, so it's a bit of the older style. So one, you still have to toggle between photo and video, which is one of the things that I love on the new Samsung Outlook that you don't have to do anymore. You just pick photo or video. Also, the shooting modes are harder to find. It is actually right up here. These are all your shooting modes for the Galaxy S3, and you have a lot of them. You have best photo, which is the burst shooting mode, and where you keep one and get rid of the rest. You have best faces for perfect group shots and pick out which one's face you want out of the group. Each person in the group's best face. HDR, of course, beauty shot, which gets rid of wrinkles, acne, and blemishes, and low light mode, which is far superior to HDR from what I've seen in comparison. Now, you also have some effects, however, they are not live. So you have, certain warm filters, posterization, some really nice ones like black and white except for blue. So on here, the only thing that is color is the blue on the iPhone 5C that I have. So you can do really nice effects besides the sepia negative and all that kind of stuff. But unfortunately, again, because it's the older interface, it doesn't have a live display on it. Over here, you also have some extra things. So you, of course, you have burst mode. You have your autofocus for macro. You have your resolution, which you can change from the normal 4:3 to widescreen if you choose to. So make it like this, but that'll make it 6 megapixels. And you can do things like auto contrast, which makes the contrast a lot better. And also have anti-shake for digital stabilization. So besides that, the other thing you can do is you can take photos using your voice. So if I wanted to say shoot, capture, smile, or cheese, I could take a photo doing that. Okay, let me try doing it. Capture. Nope, it kind of picked up, but it didn't. Normally picks up fairly well. I just upgraded to, oh, there it goes. I just upgraded to the new OS, so I haven't got a chance to play with it. But the voice capture is really nice for when you just want to hold it and not have to tap the button and just say capture, shoot, smile, or cheese, and it just takes a photo that way. So let's go to the actual photos that we've taken and compare them both. So for photo reel, let's go back to the first ones we took and start from here. So I want to start with a great low light photo of a person so we can see the contrast and difference. So this is really interesting because this seems a lot brighter, but it's definitely more washed out, whereas this is more of the kind of tone you want to see in a photo. So when we kind of zoom in, you see again, this is washed out, whereas this is more of the tones you want to see. So with flash, we've seen that definitely the iPhone 5C is a bit better in terms of flash. In clarity, both are pretty noisy. None really show a lot of clarity, I would say, but they're good for a low light photo with no light around really. It just had the flash itself. And then neither did well with no flash and just their HDR mode and low light. In terms of when there's just no light, it won't pick up that well. This picked up a little bit better, like I said, but that'll be a better example later, whereas the low light is better than HDR mode. So then we have the with flash and then without flash. So the nice thing about this one, oops, let me turn that rotation back on. So definitely we see here the flash kind of exposed everything in terms of the S3, whereas the iPhone 5, it's not really bright, but you can at least see things a bit better and clearer with flash. So the iPhone 5 seems to just do better when you have flash compared to the S3. However, when you don't have flash, this is where you get a difference. So when you don't have flash, the S3, sorry, rather, definitely lets through more light compared to the 5, which really doesn't let through any light in comparison. So you can see the images a lot better on the S3 compared to the 5C when you have no light. No flash. Both have the same light. This is taken in the exact same time with the exact same light shining from the right. However, obviously the S3 is letting a lot more light through than the 5C is. Now when we get to this area, again, this is low light mode versus, I believe HDR is what the iPhone 5 is using on this one. No, sorry, this is HDR. So this is a regular one, which if we zoom into the Jamba Juice area, let's just zoom into that. This one made out a little bit clearer. Again, this is with low light. So now when we do HDR mode though, that clears up a bit better. So in terms of clarity, I do think that this one is a bit clearer on the S3 for clarity purposes. However, it's again letting through more light. So it kind of seems to be a theme with the S3 that it's letting through more light, but whether that can be a good thing or a bad thing depends on the kind of photo you're taking. Easily in this one, you didn't want too much light because it's a lot of fluorescent lighting, so it's harming the picture more than helping it. But we do see a bit more clarity on the S3 in this case on night versus the iPhone 5C. Now when we're out here, again we have our HDR mode and our low light mode. So yeah. So in terms of these, you can see that this one has more of a lens flare, so more light being let through again, but this causes it not to be as clear. Now neither one does a great job in this scenario, but I will hand it to the iPhone 5C a little bit more for this instance. And then in a controlled environment with low light, so again these are both controlled environments for these next ones. Oops, wrong way. So for a controlled environment, this is how low light looks on both of these devices. Oops. Is how low light looks on both of these devices, normal without any kind of HDR or low light mode. So as we see here, it's very fuzzy, grainy. I would say on auto with no light being let through, it's really the iPhone 5C that's going to do a better job on auto. However, as soon as we switch this over to the auto night detection portion and on the iPhone 5, the HDR impression, then we're going to see a difference. Then it comes out that this one's actually a bit clearer because the iPhone 5 has a lot more noise in comparison. So when we see them at the same kind of area, hopefully you guys can see that it's just it's a bit clearer on this side, and as we move across you can see it even more. Just the fuzziness on this one is really apparent compared to when you're zooming in the same as this one. So you can just see the S3 a bit better in terms of low light without any kind of flash. And in terms of just a close-up shot, let's go to certain things that are smaller. So in terms of things like the 280 and the clock right here, it seems that this one tends to be a little bit sharper, but the colors are more accurate on here. So I would say the colors are more accurate, it seems like on the 5C right here, but the text is just a bit better and doesn't fade as much as on the 5C. It just kind of fades, not as crisp around the numbers. And let's just go to the, again, I have to kind of zoom in on the 5 because the 5 kind of bounces back. It doesn't let you zoom in as far as you can with the S3. So if we zoom into the same area, you can kind of just see that it's basically at the point where this is just not as fine-tuned around the letters. Oops. All right, now for macro, I would say that the 5C is going to be better with macro shots overall. It's both are fairly good, as we can see on here, but in just terms of a little bit details, I would say they're fairly close actually. Funny thing is, I think the S3 did a little bit of a better job. I'm not sure if it's just a preset macro setting or just the text macro better, but it did even a better job than the S4 at times with macro. Both are good though in terms of macro settings, and I would say that although this brings up the front, it kind of fades out the back just because of how the f-stop is laid out, whereas this one will have the back in greater detail as well. So just one contrast in how they're shooting. And in terms of when you go to those flowers that we did earlier during the day, again we see a bit of a difference. In here we can see much better color representation on the 5. However, in terms of the details, especially when you can see in the dirt, the S3 is much better in terms of detail on the area, in terms of the leaves. Everything is just more detailed on here in comparison to this one. So again, just two differences: better color reproduction during the day with this one, but more accurate and more better details and crisper on the S3. This one, both did fairly well, although definitely in this area you can kind of see a bit, I would say, just again better clarity on the S3 in comparison. So it kind of seems to be the theme with these two cameras is the S3 seems to have a bit more clarity, but the iPhone 5C, or sorry, the S3 and the has the more clarity, as the 5C tends to have a little bit better color. But the S3 is always letting through more light, so that's why this is brighter in comparison to this one. And again, that could be a good or a bad thing depending on your photo. Again, we see it here where you have a brighter versus darker tone. And if we zoom across the street, just to see if we can see the mobile sign. Zoom in right there, and zoom in right here. Again, just it's a little bit clearer on this one, and I would say a little bit better color on this one. And finally, our last photo, which is just an up close. So I wanted to see the menu symbol right here and how it was represented. Again, just a little bit more detailed on here versus this one, especially around this area. It's kind of faded and fuzzy. And then on her itself, again, bit better color, bit better clarity. So what do we have overall? So overall, I did give the win to the 5C in terms of the camera comparison. And why? Well, in terms of low light photos with flash, which is what a lot of people use, it's going to be the better one for most users. So for low light photos with flash, this is going to be better. Also, the colors tend to stand out a bit better on the 5, and so does the macro. Where the S3 seems to do better is during the day, clarity is a bit better on the S3, as well as it's always letting through more light. So that can be a good thing or a bad thing. However, if it's too much of a bright sunny day, you're going to get a haze on the photo with the S3. However, if it's during low light when you can't use a flash, the S3 will be better with its low light mode. And during the day, it's going to give you a bit better detail. Alright guys, that was the side-by-side camera comparison between the iPhone 5C and the Galaxy S3. Please give a thumbs up if you like this video, and if you have any other questions about these devices, feel free to ask. This has been RICKY, the Android Guy.